I talked to the police commissioner, and we didn't know what it was, but we said we're going to assume it. Well, let's assume it's a terrorist attack. You always assume the worst. We also had a trial going on 3 blocks away from City Hall, about 8 blocks away from the World Trade Center, of Al Qaeda terrorists, and that had resulted in my having to close down a number of blocks in the city. So we were being warned about attacks.
Right.
Not that kind of an attack, but attacks. And we did know that if it was a terrorist attack, it was probably bin Laden.
Right.
Because of the focus on that trial. But at that point, we still didn't know for sure it was a terrorist attack. And as we got about a mile away, very close, I saw a big, big explosion. I didn't know what it was. I thought maybe it was a secondary explosion from the first one.
Right.
And Bernie, police commissioner, called me immediately and said a second plane hit. It is definitely a terrorist attack.
Right.
I said, geez, we're at war. And he said, yep.
Yeah.
And I tried getting through to the White House, and I couldn't. So I said, Bernie, when I get there, let's set up a command post right nearby, and let's put in hard lines, because we need regular telephone lines. These cell phones aren't working efficiently, and we've got to talk to the president. He said, we've been able to get through, and I think we're going to have air cover pretty soon, but we got to make sure. So I said, okay, well, you set up a command post, and I'll meet you, and we set the place we were going to meet, and then we'll have to go over to the fire department command post and make sure everything is coordinated. So I got there 10 minutes later, maybe less, and they came up to me, they meaning my deputy mayor, Joe and Bernie, the police commissioner, the deputy police commissioner, and a group of my staff. And Joe was the first to tell me again how terrible it was, and that we were doing everything we can to clear the area.
Now, at this point, people didn't have the creativity, is an awful word, but the creativity to even think that the towers could fall at this point. Or did you think that there was a chance that they might?
You mean quickly?
Yeah,
No.
quickly or at all.
Oh, no, I thought they could fall.
You did?
Well, not at that point. I hadn't seen quite how bad it was.
Right.
But by the time I left, the command post, the fire department, I knew they were going to come down at some point that day or later, but in stages,
Okay.
not implode. So I went to the fire department. I took the police commissioner with me. I could see that they were setting up a headquarters in a Merrill Lynch field office.
Okay.
They threw the people out. People seemed very happy to get out. And they were putting in these big trunks, these big hard lines. So I felt pretty secure that we were going to get through. And I said, well, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go see the fire chief, because he's running this. And let's make sure he's got everything he needs. So we walked about 3 blocks, and we got right below the North Tower, and Chief Gansey was there with the fire department fights a fire with the commander as close as he can get to getting a full view of the fire.
Yeah.
He has like a board, like a podium, and on that podium is a recreation of the fire. It's where he can move his men around.
Yeah.
And that's what he was doing. And he already had a lot of people in the building. So I said, when I got there, I looked up and I saw a guy jump. And I tell you, it was really a traumatic experience watching this person jump, watching him come all the way down. And I grabbed Bernie's arm and I said, Bernie, this is different than anything we faced before. We don't have a plan for this. We're just going to have to make the best decisions we can and then ask God to make them right.
Right.
And he said, well, at least we got a lot of experience.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, well, okay. And I've got a lot of experienced people. And I went up to the chief and I said to the chief, can we get helicopters up there? Because there were a lot of people up there. And the chief looked at me and he said it to me in a very interesting way. He said, I can't get my guys above the fire.
Interesting.
So I looked, and I could see that there was a firewall.
Yeah.
And what he was saying is, I can get my people. And then he said, I can save everybody. No, here's what he said. I can save everybody below the fire.
Okay.
He was telling me, in a euphemistic way, those people up there are dead.
Wow.
Wow. I didn't feel the impact of that until that night when I thought about it.
Mm-hmm.
But what he was saying was, those people are dead.
Yeah.
Now, I emotionally realized, because I looked at them and I said, oh my God, there's people going to die.
Yeah.
And he said, I can't put a helicopter up there to blow up. The flames are too inconsistent.
Right.
And he said a helicopter rescue for civilians is very, very hard anyway.
Right.
At that height. Mm-hmm. But it's really not in the cards, given the flames that are coming out of there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it turns out they did save everybody below the fire. The 9/11 Commission said it was the most effective rescue so far in American history. That they saved every person that was conceivably able to be saved.
Interesting.
So they saved everybody below the fire.
Yeah.
Luckily, they were able to get above the fire. The chief didn't know that, but a few areas they got above the fire, and they were able to get some people down.
You mean climbing up through the staircase?
Through the back stairs that weren't affected. But the reality is that 90% of the people above the fire died.
Right.
And probably even before many of them even before the building collapsed.
From smoke inhalation?
Mostly from smoke.
Yeah.
Because the smoke up there was incredible.
Yeah.
People on the roof maybe survived until the building came down.
Yeah.
As soon as I finished with the fire commissioner, I went back to the police department headquarters they had set up. And I asked to get the president. And I got on the phone one of his assistants, who was a good friend of mine. And the first thing I asked him is, do we have air cover? And he said affirmative. And the minute he said that, he was not a military guy. And the minute he said affirmative, I said, oh my goodness, we're already into military language, affirmative.
Yeah.
And it was a funny feeling. And he said, yeah, the vice president ordered fighters out to protect New York. They should be there by now.
Yeah.
I said, okay, well, thank God, because we don't want to. I said, how many do we know how many more attacks there may be?
Yeah.
Or how many planes are out there, or something like that. And he said, we've got about 7 or 8 that are still unaccounted for, that we're tracking and worried about.
Right.
I said,
but at this point, had they shut down the airspace?
Well, I asked him,
Yeah.
I've heard rumors, I said, I heard rumors that they attacked the Sears Tower in Chicago. He said, no. The Pentagon, he said, yes.
Okay.
Yes, they had already attacked the Pentagon by the time this conversation took place. I don't think the plane had come down yet in Pennsylvania. But in any event, he said there were 7 more planes unaccounted for, and therefore we should at least be ready for possible other attacks.